But for now, let's move on to our guest in the studio here. We're more than a week into the election and there are plenty of promises and issues and political hopefuls floating around. Nathan Calman, TasFarmers CEO, joins us now to break down some of the things that matter for rural folk. Nathan, welcome to the Country Hour.
It's great to be up here with you on the Northwest Coast today.
Yeah, lovely to see you here in the studio for the first time. Hey, you've popped in today from the nearby university campus where you're hosting a forum today. What's that about?
Yeah, so during the year we run a number of member forums for industry to come together and I guess be educated in current issues and trends that are going on, but also to have a chat and share, experiences from different agricultural properties and enterprises that, can be translatable and share value across the industry. So that's what we're doing today in Burnie.
Righto. What are some of the main takeaways, the main topics?
Yeah, so we've sort of broken the day down into three core areas. Earlier this morning we heard from a number of speakers on a panel looking at the vegetable industry, which is obviously very prominent up here, and particularly a lot of biosecurity elements associated with sustainable vegetable production. We then have moved into a session around pasture and pasture in a changing climate and looking at the importance of soils. And then later this afternoon, we're going to be having a bit more of a deeper look at drought and drought resilience. So we've got some speakers that have come over from King Island to talk about their experiences over the last couple of years. But notably the Northwest Coast is still, significantly down on their annual rainfall. So great opportunity for, local graziers and producers, to come and hear from others and the things that they've done to change their farming systems.
Great opportunity to learn how you can prepare, as those King Island farmers had to learn on the fly last year particularly.
Absolutely.
Nathan, let's turn our attention to a couple of other issues now. You've recently sent an open letter to each of the council mayors about rates. Nathan, can you explain a little bit more for our audience what that is?
Yeah, so I guess through consultation with members, one of the big things we've been hearing a lot about over the last 3 or 4 years has been, the exponential growth of rates, particularly for rural ratepayers. So during the COVID period, councils were very vocal about keeping rates low, but in the background, there were a lot of ulterior tactics at play where properties were often being revalued, which allowed councils to apply and extract additional revenue from rural ratepayers. And in some areas of the state, that almost saw a doubling of rates over a 4 or a 5 year period, which can be in the, tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes close to $100,000 a year for many ratepayers
just
in the
rates.
state.
And we're talking, just for some perspective here, so the average town person in Burnie, for example, might be paying a couple of grand a year on rates. Farmers on quite valuable properties worth millions, sometimes they're paying hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands. And, in a scenario where rates could go up by $100,000, but a producer's ability to demand a higher premium from the products they're producing to pay those rates sort of aren't there. Producers are often, or generally are, price takers, not price setters.
Isn't it fair, though? I mean, people living in towns have to wear rate rises even though they don't see the value of their property unless they sell it. Surely it's the same with farmers.
Yeah, I guess it's almost a land tax by stealth in some cases with the increases we've seen. And I guess the frustrations often stem from the fact that, rural ratepayers may not even get their bin collected or any other services provided when potentially they're paying $100,000 a year more today than they were 4 years ago. And it does all come off the bottom line, and it impacts their confidence and ability to invest back into their businesses and be sustainable.
Next issue now, one of the big things you've been vocal about in the past, or TasFarmers has, is the use of agricultural land for energy projects, especially focusing on fair compensation for affected farmers and their rights as they negotiate both with government bodies and that have the power to take away their land and multinational corporations, which can be intimidating. Before this surprise election, Nathan, where was all of those discussions sitting?
So I guess at the last election, the government made a commitment to negotiate with Tas farmers on behalf of landholders to establish a fair and contemporary compensation framework, which would, for the first time, would include a strategic benefit payment. And the strategic benefit payment concept is that a share of the benefit or consumer benefit generated by the project would then be shared back with landholders hosting those assets, so that as their properties are less productive through those hosting activities, they're able to collect a very small amount and reinvest that money back into their farms. So we've been doing a lot of work over the last 18 months, not always feeling like we've been heard or listened, but trying to make sure that as a collective, the landholders that are affected by these major projects like the Northwest Transmission have a voice and are heard by government.
Does the election put that at a standstill, Nathan?
I think it probably puts us at an interesting point, and we'll be meeting with landholders again this afternoon in Sheffield. The government has recently, as 2 weeks ago, directed an offer to landholders and said this is our final solution. And many landholders have voiced to us that they don't feel like that offer has considered the independent advice that Tas farmers sought on their behalf. So I think we're at a unique position now with an election called, just to hold the government accountable for the commitments that it made less than 15 months ago. And hopefully, if we need to continue trying to get a better outcome for producers, I think there's no better time than an election to put those things forward.
I'll quickly ask about the Marinus Link project too, that Burnie end of the second interconnector proposed between Tasmania and Victoria. Look, some say it'll benefit Tasmanians, others say it won't. The Liberal Party maintains it will open up investment opportunities in the state. Critics say commercial energy users like farmers will be worse off. What is Tas Farmers' stance on that project?
I think everybody in Tassie at the moment is waiting for the final business case to be publicly released for Marinus. I think that will tell the story. What we're concerned about on behalf of rural landholders is that they may be forced to accept an unfair compensation deal for this project to appear like it satisfies those investment decisions. And I think that's the last thing we want, that for Marinus or the Northwest Transmission to proceed, that, landholders need to accept less than maybe they should be able to receive, just to create, a commercial case for the project to, move forward.
As in paying them less, and therefore it's going to be a less expensive project.
Exactly, yeah, basically subsidising, a GBE investment.
Would you like to see that business case report released publicly before we head to the polls in July?
Yeah, it was due to be released, over the last month. We yet to see any of that released publicly, and I think it would be disingenuous of the government not to release that until after the election, just to avoid a conversation about, what is in the state's long-term interest.
Nathan Calman, thank you so much for coming in, CEO of Tas Farmers.